January 27, 2019. Grace, Love in Action. Reverend Charlie Tupper. Given at Unity of Payson, Arizona.
I get to talk about grace. And if anybody has seen my license plate says, I am Grace. I have a lot of people who walk up to me and say, hi, Grace. That's your name, right? And I go, no. It's kind of a fun way to play with people. No, it's a state of consciousness. It's a state of consciousness. And grace has been something that has been near and dear to my heart really as long as I can remember. And being on this spiritual journey. And so for this month to have the focus be on grace, it was like, oh, yay. And you would think that, well, you know, if grace has been near and dear to my heart, then, you know, I should just be able to pull something out of my hip pocket, right? Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Because really it's about that when I speak on a Sunday morning, it's really about the spiritual journey. And it has to be fresh. It has to be about where I'm at in the moment. And I'm not where I was 40 years ago. But we're going to go back 40 years. Because the way I want to address grace this morning is I want to address grace in stages. That there's stages of consciousness. We talk about stages of consciousness in New Thought. We talk about that beginning stage of consciousness. We call it the victim stage. I'm not really fond of that word. And if I can come up with another word for this stage, then I will work on that. But it is the stage where we really are in this consciousness of things happen to me. Now that's often been interpreted as, you know, the bad things happen to me. But in that stage of consciousness, good things happen to us also. But it is a powerless stage of where I don't really have any power, and I pray to a God outside of me that I hope that I have made happy enough that that presence will have mercy on me and show some grace for me. In this stage of consciousness, grace shows up as that miracle. Now, if I was doing a workshop or a class, I would ask people, so share a miracle that you've had in your life. Because we probably all can come up with an experience that we've had where it just felt miraculous. It felt like there was just this divine intervention that took place. And we didn't make it happen. It just was a gift. It happened to us or for us. One such instance in my own life was when I was in my 20s. And I was driving from Southern California to Northern California with my two little children. Late at night, it's about 11 o'clock. I pull in to get gas in the not the best part of town, of this town that I stopped in. And when I went to start my car up, after putting gas in my car wouldn't start. And I was stuck. And after a series of phone calls, I ended up talking to my brother-in-law who works on cars. And he said to me, do you have a hammer and a screwdriver? And I said, well, actually, yes, I do. And he said, okay, what I want you to do, I want you to lift the lid to the engine, and I want you to put the screwdriver on this, and then I want you to whack this with the hammer. And I said, no. Because I was saying, there is no way. You know, I was just kind of in that place of angst and anxiety because I'm stuck at 11 o'clock at night with my two little kids. And I was like, no, I can't do it. And he said, okay, can you get a motel? I'll come and pick you up in the morning. And I said, I can do that. I'll figure that out. So I walked back over to my car from the phone booth. Do people remember phone booths? Yeah. From the phone booth. And this blue pickup truck pulls up. Guy gets out, a young guy. He's got a baseball cap on, kind of pulled down over his eyes. Looks at me and says, are you the lady who's having car trouble? And I said, yeah. And he says, do you have a screwdriver and a hammer? Now, mind you, he didn't ask me what was the matter with the car. He just asked for the screwdriver and the hammer. He says, I want you to get in, and when I tell you to start the car, I want you to start the car and do not turn it off. I said, okay. So he gets under the hood and he puts the screwdriver on something and whacks something else with the hammer and tells me to start the car, and I start the car and it starts. I put my kids back in the car really quick. I turn around and the truck is gone. I didn't hear the truck pull away. He didn't say anything. He was just gone. Now, I have tried in every possible way to make a logical, intellectual understanding of what happened. And I can't. And I've decided not to anymore. That was one of those moments where I felt that something was done for me that I couldn't do for myself in that moment. And I was taken care of. And I got my kids home safely that night because of this little interaction. That was a moment of grace. That was a true moment of grace for me. And I was so grateful. I think I just sang gratitudes all the way home. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I have no idea who this guy is, but thank you, God. So the next stage in our spiritual evolution and journey is the stage of the metaphysician. And the stage of the metaphysician is that stage when we recognize that we have the power to create our experience by our thoughts, our words, our emotions, and our actions. That we have this power within us to co-create our experiences with God. It's kind of like, we walk around and God and me, linked arm in arm. We're gonna do this life. And we think about the things that we want, the things that we want to experience. And as we're in that place where we're thinking about the things that we want to experience, we're conscious that, I need to speak the truth. I need to be responsible for my thoughts and my words, my feelings, because these are the creative force. And I will create from that. And that is true. So how does grace show up in that? So I was in my training to become a licensed teacher. As part of the training, you are required to do Toastmasters. And I'll just say that was not my favorite thing. The Toastmasters group I went to met at 6 o'clock in the morning. Nobody wants to be with me at 6 o'clock in the morning. Not even my husband wants to be with me at 6 in the morning. But I went. you know, determined. This one particular morning, I was supposed to give the talk. And it was at a time when I was struggling. I was really struggling. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do. But there was something that was really missing for me. My daughter was in California, and my son was in Fairbanks, Alaska. And they were starting to have children. And those children were growing up without me. And though I could get to California a couple of times a year, Alaska was a bit different of a story. And so my focus was on the Alaska kids. And I had been praying and I had been saying, okay, God, here's the deal. I don't know if you guys have that kind of relationship with divine, but you know, sometimes I just sit down and go, here's the deal. And that's where I was in this moment, and I sat down and I said, here's the deal. I am willing to do this work that you've called me to do, but I need my family. I need that connection. I need to be a part of these kids' lives. So I don't know how you're going to make that happen, or how we're going to make that happen, but here you go. And then when I did the talk, what I gave the talk on was I did a talk about playing with my grandchildren on the beach. And as I gave the talk, I could feel myself playing with the grandkids. We were throwing the frisbee and we were digging in the sand, and I could feel the sand and feel the salt air, and I was talking about all of it. And through a series of events totally out of my control, I ended up in Alaska for a week. And I got to play hide and seek with my grandchildren. I might not have gotten to go to the beach, but I got to play hide and seek with my grandchildren. And I got to hold them in my lap. And I got to read to them. And I thought that I was in heaven. And I thought, okay, I'm good. I got what I wanted. I got to be with the kids. All of this happened around the time I was going back to Unity Village for my SDS, and that's your skills demonstration testing to be licensed. And my son calls me and says, so Mom, how much is the shuttle from Phoenix to Prescott? Why? I'm coming next Thursday. I have a job interview. There's a company that called me, and they want to have a job interview with me. They want to hire me. And so for the last 15 years, I have had 7 of my grandchildren be an intricate part of my life. Miracle? Created by me? Grace. Grace in that stage of consciousness, because I didn't make it happen. I did put out what I wanted, and I did hold those feelings, and then I let it go. And I have just accepted it as a gift of grace every day. But it doesn't end there. The next stage of consciousness is we move up in the stages of consciousness, and we're always in that evolutionary push upward. And isn't that what the affirmation about grace says? It says that it's that which draws us upward. As a paradox, I often think of that upward movement as a step back and a step up. Because when we step back, we get a broader picture. We get a bigger picture. And when we step up, we get an even bigger picture. And so that next stage of consciousness is the mystic stage. And the mystic stage is that stage where we know that God moves through us. We surrender our idea of the way things have to be, the way things have to look. And we know that if we let go, then what we hear will be that divine expression that we have come here to be. And that truly is our greatest joy, is to be that divine expression. So how does grace show up in that moment? I'm going to tell a story that is not personal, because I love this story. So this story is about a teacher. This teacher is, she's in a classroom. Anybody who's worked with children will be able to relate to this. The kids were being a little unruly during the lesson, and there was some dissension going on in the class. And she probably had reached about her last nerve. And this idea came to her. And the idea was to tell them to put away what they were working on and get out a piece of paper. Write down the name of every child in the class. And she waited for them to do that, and after they did that, she said, okay, now I want you to really think about each of your classmates. And I want you to come up with something good about that person. Something that you like about that person. And I want you to write it down next to their name. And then she collected all the papers when they were done, and she took them home over the weekend, and she compiled them. And on Monday morning, she brought them back. She passed them out to each child. His list of what his classmates found good in him or her. She said the room was quiet as they looked at this list. They looked at the list, and as they looked at the list, there was little whispers of, I had no idea. Wow. Huh. She said it created a camaraderie in the class and a bonding in the class like she had never seen before. These students were connected after that point. Fast forward many years, and she has retired, and she receives a phone call from one of the students' father. And he tells her that this student was killed in the Vietnam War. And they were having a funeral, and would she please come to the funeral? He would really like it if she could come to the funeral. And so she goes to the funeral, and when she gets to the funeral, she notices that other students from that class are at the funeral, but they're still connected. And the father comes up to her, and the father says, I have something I have to show you. And he reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out a piece of paper, and it's all, you can tell it's old, and it's, the edges are ripped, and it looks like it's really been through a lot, and there's places where it's taped, but he opens it up, and it's the list. And he says he carried this with him always. And when he doubted himself, he would pull his list out and he would look at his list. And it would give him the strength that he needed in order to do what he needed to do. And one of the other students reaches back and pulls out his wallet and opens it up and pulls out a piece of paper, and he says, I carry mine in my wallet all the time, so that whenever I need it, I can just pull it out and look at it. One of the other students said, mine's in the top drawer of my desk, and I look at it often. And another one said, my husband asked me to put mine in our wedding album so that I would remember the good. one simple idea that she followed through on. And how many moments of grace did that one simple idea generate? This truly is what we are called to do. That we are unique individuals. There has never been another one of us, and there never will be another one of us. And whatever it is that those divine ideas are that come through us, come to us, to move through us and as moments of grace for others and for ourselves. Those are the important things. Those are the important moments, because those are the moments that transform us and transform the world. I like to think of grace now as the divine energy that is the flow, that is always moving. It is that divine love that is always moving between my physical expression, my physical experience, and the all that is. It is that which always connects us. And it is always projecting, always giving divine ideas of how to express this that I've come here to be. Each of us has that. Each of us has that divine presence that is always speaking to us. It is up to us to listen. And it is up to us to act on what we hear. It is that action piece that comes with the moment of grace. Grace is not idle. It is an energy that is ever moving. And it doesn't matter what stage of consciousness that we come from to experience grace, because the truth is we move between those stages all the time. We might have a primary one that we're in a lot of the time, but we move in and out of them all of the time. And so grace is always active in our lives. Let us take the time to listen. God bless.